Hello, and welcome to another Angry Unit of the Week. And today we're taking a look at the T-55AMV. So there's a whole lot you can speak to in regards to the T-55. It is the most mass-produced armoured tank in existence, which saw service in countless countries, in countless wars. However, the T-55 during the early to mid-Cold War made up the bulk arsenal of armoured tanks for the Soviet Union. And even though by the 70s it was starting to get replaced by more advanced Soviet tanks, as the T-62, the T-64, the T-72, and eventually the T-80, the Soviets still had a lot of them and still wanted to make them useful. So starting in the late 70s, they would start modernizing these T-55s into the T-55AM model, with improved fire control systems, Bastion ATGMs, gun stabilizations, laser rangefinder, a more improved engine, a better radio set, etc, etc, etc. But they wouldn't just stop here. Starting in the late 80s and early 90s in our real life timeline, they would end up modernizing them to the T-55AMV, the V standing for explosive, as they added on aero reactive armor to the T-55AMs. These would first be deployed to the Soviet Marine Infantry, or Russian Marine Infantry I should say, and then eventually to the Russian Army. And even though the T-55 was an extremely old tank by the 90s, it would stay in Russian service all the way up to 2016. In-game, the T-55AMV is a 60-point tank available to the Soviet Union, and it has 3 weapons. So you have your D10 100mm cannon with 27 rounds of ammunition. It's a pretty alright cannon, it's got alright accuracy, terrible stabilizers, and a pretty subpar AP value of 15 rounds a minute. A slightly above average rate of fire of 8 rounds a minute. You then have 4 Bastion ATGMs, they have 2.6 kilometer range, and a pretty pitiful AP value of 17 AP and only 40% accuracy, so not that great. And then you also have a Duskum machine gun, which is just a machine gun essentially, nothing too fancy here. Pop down to the miscellaneous stats. It has 11 frontal armor, 6 at side, 3 at back, and 3 at top. It has medium size, medium optics, goes 60 kilometers off-road, 110 kilometers on the road, has a decent autonomy of 600 kilometers, year restricted 1985, and only available to motorized, mechanized, armored, and marine decks. So in battle, the T-55AMV is a pretty mediocre mid-range tank for the Soviet Union. As in the large stockpile of tanks for the Soviet Union, it has a whole heap of contenders in the 50 to 60th point range. Compared to the T-62AMV-1, it has a worse gun, a worse ATGM, and even worse armor compared to that tank for the same price. The T-80 is a little bit better as an actual brawling tank, thanks to its better armor and a pretty decent gun. The T-72A is arguably worse because you don't really have any ATGMs, but you do have better armor, and you also have a worse gun with the T-72A. And the T-64B is just pretty damn good for 65 points. But really, in a standard Soviet deck, there's not really any point taking the T-55AMV. You're just pretty much outclassed by most other tank options for that price. However, it still does have a role, and that is if you are crazy enough to either play a Soviet Marine deck or a Soviet motorized deck, because in both of those decks, your only real proper tank options are the T-55, and so the AMV is pretty much the best armored vehicle you can get in both of those decks. But apart from that, it's just pretty mediocre. It's not a terrible tank, mind you, there's just other options which are better for the price. The ATGMs are just the guns, the armor's enough to maybe survive 1, maybe 2 shots from something a bit more high powered, such as your standard NATO 105mm gun. It's just a meh tank, but it's Soviet and it's rather impressive how long they managed to keep rather outdated technology still somewhat modernized. And well, I'm going to leave it off at that. This has been another Ranger's Unit of the Week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as usual, please just take it easy.